A story that connects two scandals, two royals, and one woman who somehow walked away from it all untouched. What you're about to discover isn't gentle and it isn't simple, but it's time someone said it out loud. Prince Andrew's world didn't just crack, it shattered. His connection to Jeffrey Epstein and the allegations from Virginia Roberts didn't fade quietly into tabloid history. They destroyed him publicly, permanently, and without mercy. Titles vanished, royal duties evaporated. His future inside the monarchy was erased while the world watched every brutal moment unfold. Here's what doesn't add up. If Andrew fell because of his ties to Epstein's circle, why has there been absolute radio silence about Meghan Markle's alleged connection to that exact same world? Same social orbit, same timeline, same elite circles, yet somehow two entirely different outcomes. One royal punished beyond recognition. One protected behind a wall of silence so thick it feels deliberate. No investigations, no headlines, no uncomfortable questions, nothing. It's as if someone decided certain parts of Meghan's history were off limits, locked away where no one could reach them. And that's silence. That's not proof of innocence. Silence is what happens when someone powerful doesn't want the conversation to start. Because once it starts, it doesn't stop. And that brings us to the part almost no one talks about. The part that changes everything we thought we knew about how Meghan entered the royal family. Before the wedding, before Harry, before the global headlines, sources claim Meghan had a personal relationship with Prince Andrew. Not a polite nod at a charity gala, not a brief introduction through mutual friends, a real, direct, personal connection. People close to the situation say Andrew himself told friends he knew Meghan long before she became a duchess, that their relationship was far more personal than anything the public was ever told. Think about what that means. If Meghan and Andrew had an actual history together, then she wasn't stepping into the royal world as some outsider who got lucky. She was already inside, already connected, already familiar with how that world operated. That changes the entire narrative. It raises questions the palace has never answered and probably hoped no one would ask. How did they meet? How close were they really? Why was this connection never acknowledged publicly? And here's the big one. When Andrew's scandal exploded and took him down, why was this information about Meghan buried so deep it might as well have never existed? If Andrew was destroyed because of who he associated with, and Meghan was allegedly part of that same circle, why did only one of them pay the price? Was someone actively protecting her? Was the palace terrified of what might come out if they looked too closely? Or was Meghan's past considered too dangerous, too damaging, too explosive to ever let see daylight? Whatever the answer, this chapter of her history was sealed tight. Until now. And the next piece of this puzzle takes us somewhere unexpected, out onto the water, into a world directly connected to Epstein, and right into the center of everything that's been hidden. When you're tracking a story like this, patterns start to matter, places matter, names matter, and one name becomes the bridge that connects everything. Karina Shuliak, Jeffrey Epstein's last known girlfriend. She said publicly that the only time she flew on private planes or stepped onto yachts was when she was with Epstein. Those weren't casual trips. They were part of his private world, his inner circle, the controlled environment he built around himself. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. In 2014, photographs surfaced showing Meghan on a yacht. That places her directly inside the same kind of elite, exclusive lifestyle space Shuliak described. A space closely tied to Epstein's world. This wasn't a public cruise or a sponsored event. It was a private yacht. The kind of setting most people never get near. When you layer that on top of Meghan's claimed past relationship with Andrew, the picture starts to come together in a way that's hard to ignore. Same timeline, same social circles, same kind of power-soaked environment where access means everything. This doesn't feel like coincidence. It feels like proximity. And proximity matters, especially when a massive scandal later tears through that world and one person gets destroyed while another walks away completely unscathed. If Andrew was ruined because of his presence in that orbit, then Meghan being anywhere near it raises an obvious question. What did she know? What did she see? And why has no one ever asked her directly? The yacht photo isn't just a snapshot from someone's past. It's a doorway into a chapter of Meghan's life that was never explained, never questioned, and certainly never addressed in any meaningful public way. That silence is where the real story lives, because the more you look, the clearer it becomes. Meghan wasn't just standing near the storm. She was standing inside it. When Prince Andrew's scandal reached its peak, one name carried more weight than almost any other: Virginia Roberts. She wasn't a journalist digging for a story. She wasn't an outsider looking in. She was the woman whose allegations helped bring Andrew's carefully constructed world crashing down around him. And according to sources, Virginia didn't just want powerful men questioned. She reportedly wanted Meghan Markle called as a witness. She was not because Meghan married Harry, not because she became famous, but because, according to the claim, Meghan was considered a close past associate of Prince Andrew. Let that sink in for a second. The phrase close past associate isn't casual. It implies someone believed Meghan wasn't a stranger to Andrew's private life, that she may have been present, aware, or at minimum nearby during parts of his life that later came under intense international scrutiny. The reasoning behind the reported request was straightforward. If Meghan had a personal relationship with Andrew before she ever met Harry, she might have witnessed things, heard things, been around environments and conversations others only speculated about. Wait. And here's what makes this truly unsettling. If Meghan genuinely had nothing to do with that world, why would her name even surface in connection to it? Witnesses aren't chosen at random. They're chosen because someone believes they might know something. But when the legal storm hit and the pressure mounted, Meghan was never called. Her name disappeared from the conversation entirely. Her connection to Andrew was never brought up publicly again. It was as if someone took an eraser to that part of her history and scrubbed it clean. Instead of answers, the world got silence. But silence doesn't erase facts. Silence just buries them deeper. And the deeper you dig, the more obvious it becomes that Meghan wasn't randomly dropped into royal life as some fairy tale come true. She was already touching the edges of elite power long before she ever crossed paths with Prince Harry, which leads us to the next critical question. How did she get into those circles in the first place? When Meghan moved to Toronto to film Suits, she wasn't a household name yet. She wasn't royal. She wasn't globally recognized. She was a working actress with ambition, but without a clear path into the world's most powerful and exclusive rooms. That changed faster than most people realize. According to sources, something significant shifted when she arrived in Toronto. Marcus Anderson entered her life, a senior figure connected to Soho House, the ultra-private members only network known for high-profile clientele, secret gatherings, and the kind of elite connections most people never even glimpse. Anderson didn't just meet Meghan casually. He reportedly recruited her, brought her into the fold, and introduced her to the highest levels of Toronto society. He opened doors that don't open for just anyone. Through him, she reportedly connected with influential figures, including Jessica Mulroney, and expanded into circles that stretched into New York's wealthiest and most powerful networks. This wasn't random socializing at industry parties. This was strategic positioning. One introduction led to another. One circle opened access to the next. One network created a pathway to even more powerful access. By the time Meghan's name ever entered Harry's orbit, she had already stepped into elite environments that traced directly toward royalty, wealth, and according to earlier claims, Prince Andrew's world. Her rise wasn't some overnight Cinderella story. It was built step by step, connection by connection. And the closer she got to real power, the more her path began to overlap with names that would later become dangerously explosive. But here's where the story takes its darkest turn yet, because according to sources, Harry wasn't Meghan's first royal focus. Someone else was. Someone older. Someone already inside the palace walls. Someone whose name would later become synonymous with scandal. Prince Andrew. Sources claim Meghan had her sights set on Andrew before Harry was ever part of the equation, not as a mentor, not as a casual acquaintance, but reportedly as a romantic and strategic target. If true, this completely rewrites the narrative. It suggests Meghan wasn't passively drifting through elite society hoping to get lucky. She was aiming upward with intention, calculating her moves, choosing her targets, positioning herself for proximity to titles, status, and direct royal access. But there was one obstacle standing between Meghan and Andrew. Sarah Ferguson. Fergie wasn't just Andrew's ex-wife. She was his gatekeeper, his long-standing ally, and fiercely protective of his royal position and personal space. and personal space. And according to the claim, Fergie actively blocked Meghan from getting close enough to Andrew to pursue anything further. That barrier forced a change in strategy. If Meghan couldn't reach Andrew, she needed another path into the monarchy. And that's where everything shifted dramatically. Meghan didn't plan on ending up with Harry. She didn't expect to capture the attention of a prince who was young, globally popular, and positioned directly in the royal spotlight. But when the opportunity appeared right in front of her, she seized it. And once she had Harry's attention, she didn't let go. What allegedly began as a calculated plan to move toward Andrew suddenly transformed into the biggest royal leap of the century. Meghan didn't just enter the royal family. She married straight into its heart. And that single move would alter everything, not just for her, but for the monarchy itself, for Harry, and for the secrets now hanging in the shadows, waiting to surface. Because the next part of this story takes us into the fallout, the realization, the cover-up, the threat, and the one truth powerful enough to burn it all down. When Harry married Meghan, he believed he had finally found it. Freedom. Love. A partner who existed outside the rigid, controlling machinery of the royal family. He thought he was escaping the cold formality of palace life and stepping into something real, something honest, something built on trust and truth. But according to sources, that belief didn't survive contact with reality. As time passed, whispers started reaching him. Quiet comments from people who knew things, old stories resurfacing, hidden connections being mentioned in conversations. Mentions of Meghan's past linked directly to Prince Andrew long before Harry ever entered her world. At first, he refused to believe any of it. He defended her fiercely, protected her against every accusation, cut himself off completely from family members who tried to warn him. But eventually, something shifted. According to claims, Harry didn't just hear the rumors anymore. He started accepting what he'd been desperately trying to deny. He began to realize the royal family's warnings weren't coming from jealousy or control or cruelty. They were coming from truth or cruelty. They were coming from truth. And that truth reportedly hit him like a physical blow. Sources say Harry became disgusted, distant, emotionally overwhelmed, barely able to look at Meghan without thinking about the past she never disclosed to him. He felt trapped in California, thousands of miles from his family, from his home, locked into a marriage now filled with questions he couldn't answer and doubts he couldn't shake. For Harry, this wasn't just another royal scandal playing out in the press. This was personal betrayal. This was personal betrayal. Because if Meghan had a genuine personal connection to Andrew, and if she'd once set her sights on Andrew instead of him, then Harry wasn't chosen because of love. He was chosen because he was useful. He was the backup plan, the consolation prize, Jindai's call. The accessible route into the monarchy when the first target became unreachable. And that realization, according to sources, absolutely shattered him. But while Harry was crumbling privately, struggling to process what he'd learned, the palace was making calculated decisions publicly. Decisions that reveal something much bigger was happening behind closed doors than anyone outside those walls could see. You would expect the press to explode over Meghan's claimed past with Andrew. So you would expect front-page headlines, relentless investigations, non-stop coverage, especially after the Epstein scandal completely destroyed Andrew's reputation and dragged the monarchy through one of its worst crises in decades. But none of that happened. Instead, the palace and the media remained silent, completely, deliberately silent. According to claims, that silence wasn't an accident, it was strategy. The palace was operating from a place of fear, facing three massive concerns that kept them from allowing the truth to surface. First, Harry's mental state. If the full truth came out publicly, it could break him entirely. The monarchy couldn't afford to have a prince collapsing emotionally in front of the entire world. Second, a second Epstein explosion. If Meghan was tied, even loosely or indirectly, to the same orbit that destroyed Andrew, the monarchy could be facing a scandal exponentially larger and more damaging than the first one. The kind of scandal institutions don't recover from easily. Third, structural collapse of credibility. If the public discovered Meghan's claimed past connection to Andrew, the palace would look reckless, careless, and utterly incompetent for allowing her into the royal family in the first place. It would raise questions about vetting, about judgment, about who was really running things behind the scenes. So instead of exposing the truth and dealing with the consequences, they buried it deep. No statements. No questions. No investigation. Meghan was protected, not necessarily because she was innocent, but because exposing her could set the entire monarchy on fire. And while the palace carefully built that wall of silence around her, one person on the inside refused to stay quiet forever. A man with nothing left to lose and everything to gain from revenge. Prince Andrew, imagine falling completely alone. Imagine watching your entire reputation destroyed in real time, your titles stripped away, your future inside the family erased, all while someone who allegedly shared your world, your circles, and according to sources, your personal history, walks away untouched. So that's Prince Andrew's reality right now. According to claims, Andrew is furious, bitter, exhausted from being the only one punished while Meghan remains protected behind palace walls and public sympathy. He reportedly feels he took the fall for a world she was also moving through. And now, sources say, he's ready to talk. Ready to leak everything, not because he's seeking justice or redemption, because he wants revenge. And he's not alone in this. Sources claim Sarah Ferguson, Fergie herself, is standing with him. Together, they reportedly hold knowledge about Meghan's past, her connection to Andrew, and the hidden chapters the palace has worked so hard to keep buried. For the first time, the real danger to Meghan isn't coming from the press or public speculation. It's coming from inside the royal family itself. A man who's been silenced, humiliated, and cast aside. A man with no royal future left to protect. A man who could detonate the truth with a single public statement. And the moment Andrew speaks, even just one sentence, the entire game changes. Because once he talks, silence can no longer protect Meghan. Once he opens that door, there's no closing it again. And that brings us to the final, most explosive point, the truth that could end everything. Every story has a breaking point. Every secret has a moment when it simply can no longer stay hidden. And in this story, that moment is coming closer. Because according to sources, there exists one truth, one buried reality that could destroy Meghan's royal chapter completely and permanently. A truth reportedly held not only by Andrew, but by Fergie and even Princess Eugenie. A truth tied directly to Meghan's past relationship with Andrew. A truth connected to the Epstein orbit. A truth tied to the exact reason the palace stayed silent when they should have spoken. If that truth surfaces, Meghan doesn't just lose status or public favor. She loses everything. Her carefully constructed public image, her royal identity, her future influence, and the monarchy itself could be shaken to its absolute core. Because Meghan didn't just marry into the royal family through luck or love. She allegedly infiltrated it with calculation and strategy. And if Andrew speaks, if he finally breaks his silence and says what he knows, the world will never see Meghan the same way again. The story of the modern royal fairy tale will crack wide open, revealing a history far darker and more dangerous than anyone outside the palace walls ever imagined. And that's exactly why Meghan is panicking right now. That's why the palace is frozen in defensive mode. That's why Harry is reportedly unraveling. That's why Catherine has stepped into calm, steady leadership. And that's why Charles has allegedly confirmed their eventual removal from any remaining royal connection. Because the monarchy is bracing for impact. Preparing for the explosion they know is coming but can't fully control. The only question that remains is this: what happens when the man who lost absolutely everything finally decides he has nothing left to protect? When that moment arrives, and it will, the world won't just hear a confession. So, what story? It will witness history rewriting itself in real time, right in front of our eyes. And this story, this is only the beginning.